Hello everyone, this is Hillary with Dominion Tea, and today we're going to talk about setting up your tea garden for the season. What goes into a tea garden? Well, the first thing we want to worry about is what your soil's like. And the reason for that is a lot of the herbs you would typically plant do have certain requirements, and they're not always in the soil the way you want them to be. So a couple of quick places to go look. Your local extension service. So typically university here in Virginia, that's Virginia Tech, will give you agricultural information and a general layout of your soil, so you don't have to get too technical about testing it yourself. The other place to look, the Old Farmer's Almanac, and hey, they've got their own website so you can search it. You can look at what kind of soil amendments you might need. So think compost, grass clippings, but you need to know kind of what your soil composition is first, but that's a great thing to do. You also want to look at what your sunlight versus your shade is, where you think you're going to put your garden, and your access to water, and that's because that's going to affect how all of these plants grow, and more importantly, which ones are going to grow successfully that you actually want to brew. So you might want to start with, what do you want to plant and drink, and do you have the right place and the right soil for it? And then you get to have the fun part of laying it out. So what are some of the easiest plants to grow? Well, here in the United States, and especially in Virginia, you've got some great choices to play with. Lavender is a good one. All the types of mint you can think of: chamomile, lemon balm, lemongrass, marigold. You can even keep going into all the other herbs. These are the typical ones that go into tea, but that doesn't mean you can't try other things. Once you've got your plants running, right, so now let's talk about what happens when you get to your season and you're supposed to harvest. So generally you're going to want to harvest if it's a flower, as the flower goes to bud. If it goes to full bloom, you're going to have an interesting time harvesting. They're not going to harvest as well, especially the flowers themselves. It gets harder. So you want the blooms there. You're going to usually chop right at the base above the root, and then you're going to rinse them with cold water, gently shake them dry. If you have a dehydrator, and I'm going to tell you, this is especially useful if you're working with what I'm going to call soft leaf plants. So this is mint, this is lemon balm, because they have a lot of moisture in there. And if they're not hung in a really dry place quickly, they will actually start to grow mold on you, and you may not even be aware of it inside the tea leaf, or inside the mint leaf. And so this is where a dehydrator comes in handy. If you don't have one, this is where calling up your friends and figuring out who makes their own yogurt, because they'll have one you can use, because you're looking for one that's generally in the range of 95 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit to dry out your plants. The reason you want to use the dehydrator, if you can get away with it, is it's going to pull the most moisture, which gives you a longer shelf life. If you don't have access to them, what you do, like the picture shown on screen here, is you're going to hang them upside down in a well-ventilated dry space, not in direct sunlight, especially if you want to keep the flowers and their color, because the sun's going to fade them really fast. And so you might just want to aim for hanging them upside down in the middle of the hallway in your house. Make that work. You can also lay them flat if you've got kind of a mesh screen that can allow air to circulate underneath it and to allow kind of moisture to kind of make its way through. Generally, if you're hanging and air drying, it all depends on the moisture in the air for how long this is going to take, but it's going to take a few days to get it to a dry enough point that you can go to storage. Now, here's the fun part about having your own kind of tea garden. You can actually brew a lot of those products fresh, which means you can go out, pick what you need for a cup of tea, and just brew that. So what do you do? So if you're going after something like mint or lemon balm, you're going to want to bruise those leaves. Same thing holds for lavender. If you pull the lavender and you pull the buds and the flowers, you're going to want to kind of rub them in between your fingers, break them down before you toss them into the boiling water. And the reason you want to do that is the bruised tissue makes it easy for the water to penetrate. If you've gone through the drying process, you still want to use your herbs up in 6 to 12 months, because you will absolutely find as time goes by, your flavor is going to drop. You are going to want to store them in an airtight container. As a general rule of thumb, if you're going to blend them in with existing tea, right? So if you got a favorite black tea you want to toss those mint leaves in with, or the lavender in with, figure you're going to go to about 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon per 8 ounces of water. I know some of you are just going to drop in a handful, and that's fine. Just be aware if you've got some of that fresh lavender, it's going to take over everything. You will also see the fresh oil come out of the flowers. They'll float on the top of your teacup. The fun part to do with these herbs, if you haven't thought about it, especially lemon balm, lavender, and even mint, you can take a whole fresh stalk. If you've made iced tea, drop it in the iced tea. It will kind of pass off its flavor in a very subtle way that's lovely. Now, what will happen is you do need to pull it out of there after about 8 to 10 hours. Otherwise, it's definitely going to start to break down. It will cause it to go cloudy. Doesn't mean the tea's not drinkable. It just might not be pretty to look at. So there's lots of fun things to do. And of course, we're at the end of March here, so you're maybe just a hair behind, but you still have time to put together your tea garden and reap the rewards this summer. So keep exploring.
We hope you enjoyed learning more about tea with us. Hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified when we add more videos to our channel. And check out the highlighted videos to learn even more about tea. And last but not least, you can check out all of the teas we talk about in our videos at dominiontea.com.